The cold winds of planet Virion 9 whispered across the silent battlefield. Smoke rose from the shattered ground where metal met flesh, and alien technology mixed with human firepower. Sergeant David Kane tightened the straps on his armor as he looked over the destroyed valley. The war was supposed to be over, but something had gone terribly wrong. Just 3 days ago, Earth's forces were celebrating a fragile peace with the alliance of 9 races. Virion 9 was a neutral world, a training ground for joint missions. Humans, Zyrans, Thalkari, and others trained together under one command. For the first time in history, species who had once fought each other were now allies. It was working, until the surprise attack came. Nobody saw it coming. Not the generals, not the scientists, not the alien warlords with their centuries of knowledge. An unknown enemy. No flag, no signal, no warning. Descended from the black sky and struck with brutal force. They didn't want territory. They wanted extinction. And now Kane stood at the edge of something he didn't understand. He was one of the last soldiers alive in this zone. His radio crackled. "Echo Base, this is Sergeant Kane. Area 3 is down." I repeat, Area 3 is down. No survivors. A static-filled reply cut in. "Evac, only one ship. Leave now." Kane lowered the radio slowly. He understood. Only one evacuation ship left, and it wouldn't wait long. But as he turned to move, he heard something. Not a voice, a breath. He stopped. There, among the wreckage, glowing faintly under the debris, was something large, wounded, alive. He pulled the twisted metal aside and froze. It was a Zyran warlord, Commander Jorval, the strongest warrior of the alien forces, feared and respected by all. His armor was cracked, his body was burned, and worse, he couldn't move. Paralyzed, his eyes locked with Kane's. They were full of pain, but also pride. He didn't speak. He didn't ask for help. Most humans feared the Zyrans. They were massive, horned, reptilian warriors bred for battle. But Jorval had fought beside Kane more than once. They weren't friends, but they had saved each other's lives in battle. That mattered. "Kane to command," he said into the radio. "I found Commander Jorval. He's alive, paralyzed but breathing. Request medevac support." The answer came back cold and quick. "Negative. He's not human. We're leaving in 5. Get to the ship or stay behind." He looked down at the alien commander, and Jorval stared back. That moment changed everything. David Kane was not the best soldier, not the smartest, not the strongest, but he was human, and humans didn't walk away from those who fought beside them. Not in his book. "I'm not leaving you here," Kane said, more to himself than anyone else. He grabbed a field stretcher, slid it under the alien's heavy body, and began to drag him across the broken terrain. Explosions echoed nearby. The enemy was still out there. "Just hold on," Kane whispered. "You saved my life once. Time to return the favor." The smoke never cleared on Virion 9. The sky stayed dark, filled with ash and fire. David Kane moved carefully through the wreckage, pulling the stretcher behind him. Jorval's large body was still, but his glowing eyes stayed open. They watched everything. Kane's arms ached. His legs burned. He had no map, no help. Only the wounded alien warrior and the sound of enemy drones above. They were deep behind enemy lines now. Every turn could be a trap. Every shadow could hide death. He ducked behind a half-broken wall and caught his breath. "You doing okay back there?" he whispered. Jorval blinked once. Kane laughed softly. "I'll take that as a yes." Suddenly, a noise, a sharp clicking, echoed nearby. Kane froze. It was the sound of a scout drone. He grabbed a broken sheet of metal and carefully pulled it over both of them, hoping the drone wouldn't notice the heat. He could hear it buzzing overhead. Closer. Then, silence. He waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Then he pulled the cover off and peeked out. Gone. Kane stood shaking. That was close. They moved again. Slowly. Carefully. Hours passed. Time felt strange in the endless war zone. The world around them looked dead. But Kane knew something was watching. Always watching, they reached an old human outpost, abandoned and destroyed. Inside, Kane found a small medkit, a water pouch, and some dried food. He knelt beside Jorval and opened the pouch. "You're gonna hate this," he said, pouring a few drops of water into the alien's mouth. Jorval coughed but swallowed. Kane gave a small smile. "Good. That means you're still fighting." While searching the outpost, Kane found something strange, an enemy drone, mostly intact but damaged. The body was cracked and its eyes were dark. But Kane had an idea. He opened a panel and pulled out its power core. Then he tied pieces of the drone to Jorval's stretcher, making it look like wreckage. "Let's see if we can trick them," he muttered. Now Jorval looked like a destroyed drone body on a scrap sled. If any enemy scouts flew by, they might ignore it. Or so Kane hoped. Night fell. The air grew colder. Kane made a small fire, just enough to warm his hands. He sat beside Jorval and stared into the flames. "You know," he said softly, "I used to hate your kind." Jorval's eye moved slightly. "Yeah," Kane continued. "My brother died in the First Zyran War. Your people were monsters to us. But now I see you bleeding, hurting, and silent. And I can't hate you anymore." Jorval blinked. Again, it was slow, careful. Kane looked at him. "Can you understand me?" Another blink. Same pace. Kane's eyes widened. "So we're talking now, huh? One blink for yes?" Blinked eye. Kane smiled. "Okay then, we might just survive this." Suddenly, distant rumbling shook the ground. Lights flashed in the dark sky. Kane saw movement, a line of enemy patrols heading their way. He cursed under his breath. "We need to hide. Now." Kane scanned the area. There, an old crater nearby filled with broken metal and burnt bodies. It was disgusting, but it could save them. He dragged the stretcher to the crater and slowly lowered it down, careful not to hurt Jorval more than he already was. Then he slid in beside him and covered them both with parts from fallen machines. The enemy patrol passed just minutes later. Kane held his breath. His heart pounded. Boots stomped above them. Someone was checking the crater. Jorval didn't move, not even his eyes. The soldier above grunted and moved on. 10 minutes passed before Kane dared to speak. "You didn't even flinch," he whispered. "You're tougher than I thought." Blink. They stayed in that hole all night. No sleep, no comfort. Just two warriors, one human, one alien, waiting for morning. When the sun rose, it brought a new sense of purpose. Kane climbed out of the crater and stretched. "All right, let's move. I think I know where we are now. There's a communication tower a few miles east. If we can reach it, maybe we can call someone." He looked at the alien on the stretcher. Jorval stared back. Stronger now. More alive. Kane nodded. "Let's go, Commander. I'm not done with you yet." And so the human and the paralyzed alien began their slow journey again. Deeper into enemy land, closer to the truth, and far from safe. But something was changing between them. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming something else. Brothers in arms. The sun burned low in the sky, casting a deep orange glow over the dead planet. David Kane's boots crunched over the broken glass and dry soil as he pulled the stretcher through another stretch of wreckage. Jorval's weight had not lessened, but Kane didn't complain. His muscles hurt, but his mind stayed focused. Ahead, the outline of a tall, crooked tower appeared on the horizon. "There it is," Kane said, pointing. "That's the beacon. If it still works, we can send a signal." He hoped someone would hear it. He didn't care if it was human or alien, he just wanted help. But as they got closer, his hope began to fade. The tower was almost gone. One side of it had collapsed and a fire-blackened hole was ripped through its core. It looked like a broken tooth jutting from the ground. Kane sighed. Well, Maybe there's still something inside. He pushed open the hatch at the base of the tower. The inside was dark, filled with wires, broken panels, and sparks dancing along the floor. Kane set Jorval's stretcher down gently and began to search. He climbed to the second level where the main control room was supposed to be. Half the floor had caved in. One wrong step would drop him 20 feet. But there it was, the old control console, dusty, damaged, but still blinking. Kane knelt beside it. "Come on, baby, talk to me." He flipped switches, rewired a few connections, and hit the power button. The screen flickered. Then, error. "Of course," he muttered. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from below. Kane stood quickly. "Jorval?" Rushed down the steps, but nothing had moved. Still, Kane felt something was wrong. He looked around. Then he saw it. A red sensor dot blinking on Jorval's chest. A targeting beacon enemy drone. Kane spun and pulled his rifle up just in time to shoot the small recon drone flying toward them. It exploded in the air, its pieces raining down, but it had already scanned them. "Great," Kane growled. "Now they know we're here." He worked faster. Back at the console, he tried again. The system was locked behind an old alien interface, one used only by high-ranking Alliance officers. Kane didn't have the clearance, but Jorval might. Kane rushed down. "You're up, big guy." He opened the portable link device from his gear and gently pressed it to the side of Jorval's neck. It beeped. A soft light blinked. Kane ran back to the console and connected the link. Then, the screen changed. Language symbols flickered. The system responded. It worked. Kane smiled. "You're full of surprises." Jorval's eyes watched the screen, blinking once slowly. Kane sent out a basic distress signal, using the emergency frequency. "This is Sergeant David Kane, Human Ground Forces. I am with Zyran Commander Jorval. He is injured but alive. We are stranded at Outpost Beacon 47. Coordinates transmitting now. Please respond. Anyone." The message looped. Kane leaned back. It wasn't much, but it was something. He sat beside Jorval, breathing heavy. Now we wait. Hours passed. No reply. Then the tower began to hum. A new signal. Not one Kane sent. He stood. On the screen, incoming message, but encrypted. He played it anyway. The voice that came through was alien and angry. "Leave the warrior. This is not your concern, human. You will not survive if you stay." Kane stared. "Who?" Then he saw it. A symbol on the message. It was not from the Alliance. It was from the enemy. Somehow they had tapped into the same frequency. They knew Kane was helping Jorval, and they didn't like it. Kane looked at the screen. Then he looked at the alien, warrior beside him. "No way, I'm not leaving him. You want him? Come and get him." Suddenly a warning blared on the console. "Incoming strike detected." Kane's eyes widened. "They're firing on the tower." He grabbed the stretcher and began to move. Fast, down the back stairs, out through the rear hatch. The moment they were outside, a blinding light lit up the tower. Boom! The beacon exploded, fire shooting into the air like a volcano. Kane and Jorval were thrown backward by the shockwave. Dust filled the sky. Kane coughed and dragged Jorval behind a large piece of stone. He looked back. The beacon, gone. So was their only chance at rescue. But the fire didn't kill their spirit. Kane wiped the blood from his face. "All right. No one's coming. That means we do this the hard way." Jorval blinked once. He understood. Kane nodded. "We survive. Together." As the enemy ships flew above, scanning for life, two figures disappeared into the shadows. One human soldier and one paralyzed alien warrior, moving silently, deeper into danger, and closer to the truth of who had betrayed them all. The sky was darker now. The smoke from the destroyed beacon still floated in the air as David Kane dragged the stretcher through the ruins of a once beautiful valley. This place used to be a base camp for the Alliance of 9 races. Now it was a ghost town. Empty buildings, crushed tanks, burnt banners of peace. Kane felt the weight of it all, not just Jorval's body, but the silence, the fear, the betrayal. He knew it now. The enemy didn't find them by luck. They knew exactly where the beacon was, and they fired on it the moment he sent the signal. Someone had given their position away, someone on the inside. He stopped and looked back at Jorval. "They're watching us," he said. "Someone betrayed us, one of your people or one of mine, maybe both." Jorval's eyes narrowed slightly. A blink, slow, thoughtful. Kane sat beside him and reached for his canteen. "You were part of the council, weren't you? The top commanders of the 9 races." Blink. Kane nodded. "Then you know something. Maybe you know who sold us out." He pulled out the portable data reader he had taken from the beacon. The last thing it recorded was the symbol from the message. The same one from the unknown enemy transmission. He showed it to Jorval. Who uses this symbol?" Jorval stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, painfully, his hand moved. It shook, but it pointed to a spot on the reader's screen. The screen changed. A file opened. Zyran Intel Report. Operation Broken Wing. Classified. Kane's eyes scanned the text. It told the story of a secret plan, months before the war started. Certain members of the council had feared humans were growing too strong, so they contacted an unknown enemy, offered them locations, weaknesses. In exchange, they would strike first, wipe out key human command centers, then blame it on a mystery force to unite the races under alien leadership. But something went wrong. The enemy didn't stop with humans. They turned on everyone, even their allies. Now the betrayers were hiding, letting others die while they stayed safe. Kane's hands curled into fists. "They planned this whole thing," he whispered, "and they left you behind too." Jorval blinked once. It was slow, full of shame. Kane looked at him. "You didn't know, did you?" No blink, just silence. "That said everything. You fought for peace. They used you, then left you to die." Small tear rolled from the corner of Jorval's eye. The alien warrior, so strong, so feared, was crying. Kane didn't speak. He just sat beside him, quiet. Then he stood. "All right. If they started this war, we'll finish it. Together." Just then, movement in the trees ahead. Kane dropped to one knee, pulled out his rifle, and aimed. 2 creatures stepped into view. Not human, not Alliance. 6 legs, blue armor, long eyes. Enemy scouts. They hadn't seen him yet. Kane quickly covered Jorval with debris and crept forward, crawling through the ruins. He had no time to plan. If they spotted them, a full strike team would follow. He reached a fallen enemy soldier, one of the blue-armored creatures, and pulled its weapon. It still worked. Kane stood, took a breath, and fired. The scouts dropped fast. 1 shot each. Clean. Silent. Then he ran back. Jorval blinked at him. Kane smirked. "Don't look so surprised." They needed to keep moving. Fast. But Kane had an idea. He stripped the armor from the dead scouts and used it to cover the stretcher. Now Jorval looked like a fallen soldier being transported. "We'll use their tech against them," Kane said. "We'll go where they least expect. Into their territory." He looked east, toward the dark mountains where the enemy signal had come from. "That's where we'll find answers, and the ones who betrayed us." Kane grabbed the stretcher ropes again. Jorval blinked twice, once for yes, once for respect. They moved under the fading light, human and alien, heading into the heart of enemy land, not to hide, but to expose the truth. The soldier who refused to leave his friend, and the warrior once feared by galaxies, now stood together against betrayal, lies, and the shadow of war. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were about to become the spark that started a revolution. The sky was darker now. The smoke from the destroyed beacon still floated in the air as David Kane dragged the stretcher through the ruins of a once beautiful valley. This place used to be a base camp for the Alliance of 9 races. Now it was a ghost town. Empty buildings, crushed tanks, burnt banners of peace. Kane felt the weight of it all. Not just Jorval's body, but the silence, the fear, the betrayal. He knew it now. The enemy didn't find them by luck. They knew exactly where the beacon was. And they fired on it the moment he sent the signal. Someone had given their position away, someone on the inside. He stopped and looked back at Jorval. "They're watching us," he said. "Someone betrayed us, one of your people or one of mine, maybe both." Jorval's eyes narrowed slightly. A blink, slow, thoughtful. Kane sat beside him and reached for his canteen. "You were part of the council, weren't you? The top commanders of the 9 races." Blink Kane nodded. "Then you know something. Maybe you know who sold us out." He pulled out the portable data reader he had taken from the beacon. The last thing it recorded was the symbol from the message, the same one from the unknown enemy transmission. He showed it to Jorval. "This. Who uses this symbol?" Jorval stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, painfully, his hand moved. It shook, but it pointed to a spot on the reader's screen. The screen changed. A file opened. Zyran Intel Report, Operation Broken Wing. Classified. Kane's eyes scanned the text. It told the story of a secret plan, months before the war started. Certain members of the council had feared humans were growing too strong, so they contacted an unknown enemy, offered them locations, weaknesses. In exchange, they would strike first, wipe out key human command centers, then blame it on a mystery force to unite the races under alien leadership. But something went wrong. The enemy didn't stop with humans. They turned on everyone, even their allies. Now the betrayers were hiding, letting others die while they stayed safe. Kane's hands curled into fists. "They planned this whole thing," he whispered, "and they left you behind too." Jorval blinked once. It was slow, full of shame. Kane looked at him. "You didn't know, did you?" No blink, just silence. That said everything. You fought for peace. They used you, then left you to die. A small tear rolled from the corner of Jorval's eye. The alien warrior, so strong, so feared, was crying. Kane didn't speak. He just sat beside him, quiet. Then he stood. "All right. If they started this war, we'll finish it. Together." Just then, movement in the trees ahead. Kane dropped to one knee, pulled out his rifle, and aimed. 2 creatures stepped into view. Not human, not Alliance. 6 legs, blue armor, long eyes, enemy scouts. They hadn't seen him yet. Kane quickly covered Jorval with debris and crept forward, crawling through the ruins. He had no time to plan. If they spotted them, a full strike team would follow. He reached a fallen enemy soldier, one of the blue-armored creatures, and pulled its weapon. It still worked. Kane stood, took a breath, and fired. The scouts dropped fast, 1 shot each. Clean. Silent. Then he ran back. Jorval blinked at him. Kane smirked. "Don't look so surprised." They needed to keep moving. Fast. But Kane had an idea. He stripped the armor from the dead scouts and used it to cover the stretcher. Now Jorval looked like a fallen soldier being transported. "We'll use their tech against them," Kane said. "We'll go where they least expect, into their territory." He looked east, toward the dark mountains where the enemy signal had come from. "That's where we'll find answers, and the ones who betrayed us." Kane grabbed the stretcher ropes again. Jorval blinked twice, once for yes, once for respect. They moved under the fading light, human and alien, heading into the heart of enemy land. Not to hide, but to expose the truth. The soldier who refused to leave his friend, and the warrior once feared by galaxies, now stood together against betrayal, lies, and the shadow of war. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were about to become the spark that started a revolution. David Kane crouched behind a fallen wall, rifle ready. The enemy was coming fast. He could hear the metallic stomp of their boots and the strange clicks of their armor echoing through the ruins. Beside him, Jorval stood tall in the exosuit, He wasn't at full strength, but he could move now. His steps were slow but heavy. His eyes burned with purpose. Kane whispered, "They found us faster than I thought." Jorval's deep voice rumbled, "Let them come." Kane smirked. "That's the spirit." They had reached the final ridge above the main valley, where an old Alliance emergency extraction pad still sat. It was inactive and half-buried, but if Kane could fix it, maybe, just maybe, they could signal someone again. But they wouldn't get time to fix anything if they didn't fight first. Kane placed small traps around the ridge, tripwires, makeshift mines, and old charges they'd found in the ruin. He knew it wouldn't stop the enemy for long, but it would slow them down. The first wave came just as the sun began to rise. Strange, insect-like soldiers with glowing armor and energy rifles. Fast, ruthless, Kane fired first, short bursts, clean shots, dropping two before they even reached the traps. Jorval raised his arm. A mounted cannon on the exosuit roared to life, blasting fire through the narrow path. Enemy bodies flew through the air. The traps exploded. Screams filled the air. Kane rolled behind a pillar and reloaded. "This is working!" More enemies came. 10, 20, maybe more. They were surrounded. But neither man nor alien backed down. Jorval moved with power, swinging his metal arm like a hammer, knocking enemies aside. His armor took hits, but he didn't stop. Kane stayed, close, covering his sides, shooting anything that got near. They moved as one, back to back, warrior and soldier, human and alien. A second wave arrived, heavier troops with armored mechs and drones. Kane cursed. "They brought the big boys." Jorval stepped forward. "Cover me." Kane laid down fire as the alien commander charged the biggest mech. With one jump, helped by the suit's boosters, he landed on top of the machine, ripped off its weapon arm, and slammed it into the cockpit. The mech collapsed. Kane couldn't believe it. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Jorval growled. "I am remembering who I am." But then another sound, a third wave, too many. They were being pushed back. Kane's ammo ran low. "I'm down to one clip." Jorval's suit sparked, energy fading. Kane looked around. No way out, unless... He ran to the old extraction panel and powered it on. The lights blinked, a weak signal. Barely there. He boosted the frequency using the drone parts from earlier. His fingers flew over the controls. Finally, a message sent. "Emergency. Kane and Jorval. Final coordinates. Request. Extraction immediate under attack." He didn't know if anyone would answer. Then he turned and froze. Jorval had taken a blast meant for him. The alien warrior fell to one knee, armor cracked, smoke rising from his chest. "No!" Kane shouted, running to him. Jorval looked up, weak but still alive. "You must survive." Kane shook his head. "Not without you. We end this together." More enemies climbed over the rocks. The ridge was overrun. Kane raised his rifle, ready to die fighting. Then, a loud rumble shook the sky. A beam of light cut through the clouds. A ship, a real Alliance ship, and it was coming down fast. Kane shouted, "They heard us!" The ship's cannons fired, blasting the enemy from above. Troops descended, humans and aliens, fighting to reach Kane and Jorval. Kane dragged the injured commander toward the landing spot. "Stay with me." The rescue squad arrived, forming, a shield around them, returning fire. Jorval's head fell back. "Did we win?" Kane smiled. "We lived. That's a start." They lifted Jorval onto a medical stretcher and pulled Kane aboard. As the ship rose, Kane looked down at the battlefield below, smoke, fire, silence, but also hope. They had made their stand, and the galaxy had heard it. The stars outside the window of the medical ship were peaceful, silent, nothing like the battlefield below. David Kane sat beside Jorval's bed. The alien warrior's body was covered in healing wraps and neural tubes. Machines beeped softly, keeping him stable. Kane's own arm was wrapped, ribs cracked and face bruised, but he didn't care. They had survived. A human nurse walked in. "We'll be arriving at the Alliance Council base in 20 minutes. You're expected to speak." Kane nodded. Jorval opened one eye slowly. His voice, rough but steady, rumbled. "Will they listen?" Kane leaned closer. "They will now." He held up a small data drive, the one they had pulled from the enemy beacon. Inside it was proof of everything. The betrayal, the secret deals, the lies that started the war. "We expose this," Kane said. "We end this madness." Jorval blinked once. "Then we finish what we started." The council room was massive, floating in space above a blue planet. 9 banners hung from the ceiling, each one a symbol of the races that formed the Alliance. But peace had been broken, and now every leader sat in silence as Kane stepped forward. Jorval was beside him, supported by a reinforced frame. He walked slowly but proudly. The exosuit had been repaired, so had his spirit. Kane placed the data drive on the table. "This," he said, "is the truth." Gasps filled the room as the evidence played. Faces turned pale. Accusations began. One by one, the names of the betrayers came out. 3 council members stood and tried to deny it, but they were taken into custody. When the recording ended, silence returned. Kane looked at the crowd. "You wanted to let him die," he said, pointing at Jorval. "Because he wasn't human, because he was just a soldier. But he stood with me when no one else would. He didn't leave me, I didn't leave him, and because of that we lived, we found the truth, we fought back." He turned to Jorval. The alien warrior stepped forward, voice deeper and louder than before. "I was trained to fight, to lead, to win, but I was never taught what it means to be truly loyal, until a human carried me through fire and death. This soldier, this human, showed me the meaning of honor." He looked at the leaders one by one. "If there is to be peace, then it will not come from treaties or lies. It will come from trust." He removed the broken insignia from his armor. "I resign from the old command." Then he took Kane's hand and raised it. "And I swear my life to a new one." A new symbol appeared behind them, half human, half Xeran. A new bond, not of politics, not of race, but of respect, of brotherhood. The room rose to its feet. Claps echoed. The war would not end today, but it would change, because of one soldier, and the alien he refused to leave behind. Epilogue weeks passed. Kane stood in the hangar of a new ship, sleek, fast, built for missions no one else dared take. He wore new armor, black and silver. Jorval stood beside him, fully recovered, his exosuit now a part of him, no longer a cage but a weapon. Together, they led the new unit, the Oathborn. Soldiers from all races, outcasts, survivors, fighters who believed in unity, not fear. As the ship lifted into space, Kane looked at his old friend and said, "Ready?" Jorval nodded. "Always." They vanished into the stars, not as a human and an alien, but as brothers.